Hey, what's up, everyone? It's Zach from the ZAP podcast. I have always wanted to start a podcast, but I never knew where to start or where to even begin. And then I stumbled across the Anchor app. I love the Anchor app because it's completely free and it has all the editing and uploading capabilities that you need right from your phone. So it's super easy and super user friendly. If you've always wanted to start a podcast, go download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. All right, let's get on to the episode.
All right, what's up, everyone? It's Zach, and today I am not here with a very special guest, and it is actually a special episode. So, today, Monday, February 14th, 2022, is actually Valentine's Day. So, in the spirit of the holiday, I was thinking, what can I do that's special and what can make this episode unique? So I had this idea of making a topic on self love. So for Valentine's Day, that's a holiday that a lot of people might spend with a significant other if you have one. And if not, it might be a day to spend with yourself or a day where people might be sad because they don't have it to spend with anyone special. So, for those of you who might not, I think it's important to know that even if you spend a day like today by yourself, that this is a perfect day to practice self-love and just to give yourself the same love and grace that you would give to someone else. So, I had this idea and I brought it to a good friend and friend of the podcast, Ryli, who you may remember from the first episode actually. And I just kind of spitballed this idea with her, and she also has a podcast. So I thought, if I can't do this idea, maybe she could. And that conversation turned into what you will be hearing today. Um, in addition to that, I also reached out to a few friends, some that you might recognize from past podcast episodes, and some that you might not. And basically, I just asked them talk about self love, and through their messages, they share what it means to them, how they can practice it, how other people listening could practice self love, and some give some stories, just input, advice, experiences, and I think that that is what makes this episode so cool and so unique. So, special thank you to everyone that's been involved with this whole production. I literally had this idea like less than 48 hours ago, and here it is becoming a reality. So, special thank you to Eric Chow, Kaitlyn Plohetski, and Anastasia Schanner for being guests with their messages. And then a special thank you to Ryli for helping me come up with this whole idea and plan. And when you get to the part that involves Ryli, you will hear why I'm thanking her. So, without further ado, thank you all for listening. I appreciate it. Make sure that you do something special or nice for yourself today because just like you care for others, you need to care for yourself and you deserve it. Until next week, when things go back to normal, here's the special episode. Happy Valentine's Day. Thank you all for listening.
Hi there. My name is Eric Chow, and my buddy Zach asked me to talk a little bit about self love. So, for me, there's a particular memory that I have where a former, he was my teacher at the time. And this is a particular teacher who has certainly had a very big impact on my life. But I remember this as being one of the most significant moments. I was in his room after school. I just was hanging out, I suppose, and there was this just one liner that he threw at me, and it really made sense to me. He said, quote, "Don't set yourself on fire to keep others warm." Very funny kind of statement, but I had always heard the other versions. I'd always heard, put on your in the airplane, you put on your breathing mask first, and then you help the other people around you. You got to take care of yourself first before you take care of other people. And I had always heard that, and I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Obviously, I don't want to die. But I realized that I actually wasn't really living it. I've always been the kind of person who's been very caring, very helpful. If somebody had a question about something they didn't understand in school, somebody needed somebody to rant to, whatever sort of situation. If they knew who I was and they knew me, they usually would feel comfortable coming to me, and I was always willing to serve and listen and chat and help and all of that good stuff. But I realized maybe I'm not actually taking enough care of myself. I think for very service-oriented people, for very giving sorts of people, our challenge has always been, I want to give. I don't want to like take care of myself. It's not that we don't want to. It's we feel like we would rather spend our time and energy, if we're going to care about somebody, it might as well not be us. It might as well be somebody else. And to some extent, that's actually a really wonderful, wonderful trait. I think it's beautiful, the fact that we can actually care about other people so much that we sometimes even forget to care for ourselves. And I think that brings us a lot of tremendous rewards. However, as my teacher said, we don't want to set ourselves on fire for it. Because if I light myself on fire to keep somebody else warm, what happens when I am burnt out and I am gone? So I think that self-love is, for a giver and a server, a long-term play to do more of what you want. In the short term, yes, I may be able to help this person stay warm in whatever way that means, giving, serving, helping somebody. In the short term, I may be able to do that, but in the long term, I will lose because I will have been burnt out and the other person will not have any support from me. On the other hand, if I make sure that I take care of myself, my health, my mental state, my physical state, my emotional and spiritual state, if I take care of myself, which is self-love, meaning I get enough sleep, I eat right, I work out, I make sure I just mentally I'm taking care of myself, whatever you need to do for that. Listen to some nice music, podcast, meditation, whatever you do. When you take care of all of that, then you are able to, in the long term, serve people in a bigger way. A few years after that conversation with this teacher of mine, another close friend was talking to me and we were chatting about whatever we were chatting about. And he just kind of looked at me and said, "Listen, Eric, you're a very caring person and you want other people to win. You want other people to succeed and reach their dreams and goals and all of this amazing, all of their ambitions. You want them to do that. Every time I ask you about what you'd like, you always end up talking about other people." And what he told me was, the best thing you can do to help other people win, help other people succeed, help other people grow, is to make sure that you are winning, that you're succeeding, and you're growing. I am not able to pull people if I am not moving on myself. I cannot guide people if I have not done it myself. I cannot help people if I have not done it myself. So what I realized is I also need to take care of myself and have this sort of self-love in order for me to be able to benefit people. It's a very, to use a very simple example, at a financial sense, if I have $20, I'm broke and I can't actually help a lot of people. But if I have $200 or $2,000 or $20,000 or $200,000 or $2 million, the more I have, the more I'm actually able to give and serve. And it's the same thing with my time. It's the same thing with my emotional state. It's the same thing with my mental capacity to handle challenges and struggles. The more I take care of myself, the more I have room and ability to be able to help other people. So self-love for a giver and a server, somebody with that sort of a spirit, is actually very much a practical thing. And the way you build self-love into your life is building a few simple habits. It does not necessarily need to be, I need to block out 3 hours for my self-love routine. It is very simply building little things through the day that are just for you. Just like every morning you will brush your teeth, and every night you will brush your teeth, I hope, you can build in small habits throughout the day that help you take care of yourself. That might be working out. You may go to the gym, you may play a sport, you may just do a couple of exercises at home, you may go for a walk or a run. It doesn't really matter. You build something to help you take care of that physical movement, part of taking care of your body. You make sure that, hey, I need to get enough sleep. I don't know what that number is for you, but you need to get that 6, 7, 8, 9 hours of sleep, whatever it is for you. You want to make sure that you're eating right. It's not something that you struggle to do or that you spend a lot of time doing. It is these small little things that you build into your days and your weeks that you do so that every single day you're taking care of yourself. Yes, you may have every couple of weeks, every couple of months, that one thing that you may go for a massage, a spa, or something fancier for your self-love routine. That's awesome. But it's important to build these small habits into your day. So for me, I make sure that I am working out 5 days a week, roughly. And usually I'm working out at home. Sometimes I go for a walk or a run or something like that. And I'm building up that habit. I'm actually going to be doing some more things very soon for my physical movement activity. I eat very well. I have a great vitamins and supplements routine, which really, really helps me personally. Another habit that I have is absolutely core is reading. I read from a book that uplifts me every single day, and I've been doing that for almost 2 years. I've probably skipped 3 or 4 days here and there, but for 2 years pretty much, I've been absolutely consistent with that habit, and it's been incredibly beneficial for my mental state. Listening to the right podcasts and audios, watching videos, whatever kind of digital content, but actually like not just the random posts and the random 1-minute reels on TikTok, but also like the longer form video, the longer form podcast, and actually making sure that I'm building all of that into my day so that physically I'm taking care of myself, mentally I'm taking care of myself, trying to build a little bit of time where I can just sit down and even think, having time to myself. That's something that most people don't do because they're afraid of sort of just spending time with themselves. 10 minutes. You, a notebook, a pen maybe. You don't need a journal if you don't want to. You may just like sit down and write about, hey, this is something I learned today from a book I read. This was a really nice conversation. This is, you may not even think about anything. You may just, this is whatever's in my head and I'm putting it down on a piece of paper. Whatever it is, I think building these small little habits into your day is part of self-love and an important part of it because it's taking care of you so that you can do everything else that you want to do. If you're an ambitious person, you will not be able to sustain everything that you want to do if you do not take care of yourself. Self-love is saying, I love me enough to take care of myself so that I can do what it is that I want to do. Self-love is also saying, I care about me enough that I will not allow other people to devalue who I am, to disrespect me. I will walk away. I am willing to walk away if this person is not willing to respect me, my time, and whatever else. Self-love is 2 key things. It is number 1, a series of very simple habits, And number 2 is valuing yourself enough and knowing that, hey, you know what? I'm a human being. I'm not perfect. I am not absolutely incredible, or I'm not better than anybody else. But I sure as hell am not worse than anybody else. I am as worthy as everybody else is. And just remembering and keeping in that perspective, hey, you know what? My odds of being born are trillion to 1. My odds of being born, I mean, we are more likely to get struck by lightning 7 times in our life than actually be born. A single cell in our body, a human cell, has enough material to fill 600,000 pages of a book. I mean, that's a lot of books. That's like a whole library. One cell, the DNA in that, has enough information to fill 600,000 pages. And we have a whole lot of cells in our body. There's got to be some information in there that's pretty cool and that's worth admiring. All right, if you're wondering, like, what can I love about myself? There's a lot of dang information in your body. Something has got to be cool. So when you realize, like, hey, there are some things that I can appreciate about me, and you look for that, and you focus on that, and you pay attention, hey, this person's complimenting me on this. That's pretty cool. And I think that attitude is a big part of self-love. So with that, I'm done. Thanks, Zach, for the question. And to listeners, I hope I was able to add a little bit of value. Thank you.
To me, self-love is similar to the golden rule, which is do unto others as you wish would have done unto you. But the problem with that, I think, is that sometimes we forget to do nice things for ourselves. We often treat others better than we even treat ourselves. So for me, self-love and self-care is the kind of opposite of that, which would be care for yourself, love yourself in the way that you love and care for others. Because you are human just like your friends and your family and those you care for and love for. So why don't we treat ourselves in the same way? And I think it's difficult because so many of us battle against insecurities and battle against comparing ourselves to others, and we hold ourselves to such a high standard because we see others doing things that we wish we could do or that we wish we were like. And I think that leads us to be harder on ourselves, and it leads us to not love ourselves and to not care for ourselves. So I think actively trying to acknowledge where you're comparing yourself to others is really important in achieving some level of self-care and self-love. And I think that really acknowledging honestly your strengths, because too often we see our strengths and we say, oh, I think I'm pretty good at this. And we need to remind ourselves of the things that we genuinely are good at and the things we are genuinely passionate about. And we have to come by it honestly. We can't sit here and say, oh, so-and-so is really good at this. You just have to acknowledge where your strengths are in order to care for yourself. And I think another thing to help you attain self-love is to just not be afraid of doing what makes you happy and not be afraid of doing what you enjoy, because the things you love are the things you love to do, and that is absolutely and completely uniquely you. And I think too often in society we feel shamed for that, and there's no reason that we should be. So to attain that self-love, I think you just really need to be unabashedly and unashamedly you.
In my opinion, practicing self-love and self-care is super, super important. Whether it's just like small acts of kindness or like starting a new hobby or just like doing a face mask once a week for your skin, big or small, it makes a huge, huge difference. sometimes you don't feel like yourself, or you are feeling anxious and just not the best, and it is so hard to look yourself in the mirror and not see all the flaws or all the wrongs you see in yourself. So just, being kind to yourself and loving and, caring about yourself is so important, because it is so easy to spiral into self-hatred and only focus on the bad things. It took me a whole lot of time to understand that how I speak to myself, it really affects my mood and my thinking and my whole vibe about myself. So even when I feel like a shit, honestly, when I feel like shit, I still try to be kind to myself, look myself in the mirror and say hey, you're doing the best you can. Maybe today is not your day, but that's okay. We can try again tomorrow, and not get, stuck in that negative mindset about yourself. So I just think that doing small things for yourself, like I said, doing a face mask once a week, or buying a new perfume that you like, or buying that stupid expensive coffee, $7 coffee, that's if that makes you feel so good, just do it. But I think it is important to remember that sometimes self-love and self-care is also taking care of yourself, literally. So when you don't feel like showering, or doing your laundry, or maybe changing your sheets, or vacuuming your apartment, I think it's really, really important to remember that those things also, they will help you feel better. So I think it is so important to remember that self-love and self-care also includes those normal things, like going to shower, or doing your laundry, and that can be enough for one day. When you feel really low and you feel like the whole world is against you, I think the best thing that you can do to yourself is say that, hey, I'm gonna do only one thing today, and it's I'm gonna go shower, and then I'll go to sleep, and I'm gonna have a better day tomorrow. And I think that is the most important act of self-love and self-care. And yeah, just be kind to yourself. You're important and so loved. And also happy Valentine's Day.
Hey ZAP podcasters, this is Ryli, and I am taking over Zach's podcast today to subject him to my questions. So tune in. We have a great episode for you guys today, and I can't wait for you to hear it. So let's get into it.
My plan is that there's no plan.
That sounds like the perfect thing for my podcast.
Yeah,
No
definitely. No, honestly, this is just going to feel like a hostile takeover. I'm just going to basically subject you to the stuff that I do on my podcast, where it's just literally chaos, and we're going to...
Good chaos.
Yeah, good chaos. We're going to ask you questions that probably are going to make you uncomfortable a little bit. Or not uncomfortable, you know what I mean? That are going to feel a little bit weird to talk about.
And...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially because your podcast has been so much of highlighting other people and what are all the good attributes that they're doing, what, that I want people to see the good in you, because nobody ever interviews you. So.
No, that sounds perfect. I mean, right in line with what I normally do. And I mean, this is a whole new thing for me, right? kind of like you mentioned, I'm always the one asking the questions or highlighting others. So, you know, out of all the recordings I've done, I'd probably say this one's the one that I'm most like quote unquote nervous for. Like I wouldn't say I'm really nervous, but
No,
like
I'm nervous.
it's definitely it's a different feeling. But like to not be the host of your own podcast feels weird, but I trust you with my life in general. So like I trust you with my show, I trust you with my podcast. So you are the host.
Deal. I am the captain of this ship now.
You're the captain of the ship and the hostile takeover. And
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, first off, I want to say I'm so proud of you, and watching the beginning of just you launching the podcast up until now has been really insane. I just don't think people realize the time and work that goes into putting together something like that. And to have the capacity to sit there and be able to share these people's stories, but also be able to talk to any kind of person, that speaks volumes to who you are. That is so terrifying. This is so scary on your end, like what I'm doing right now for you. And I know you really, you know what I mean? I know you really well. And so it's less scary. These are people that you may or may not, you know, have a personal relationship with. And it's like, how do you, how in the world have you worked that out and figured out how to be vulnerable in that sense? Because that's scary.
Yeah, well, I mean, thank you so much for all the kind words and support and everything. And you know, I think that for me, I've just always loved connecting with people, and I'm like the weird person that pre-pandemic, like when you could be more social, like if I'm in an elevator next to someone, I'll just like ask them how their day is going, or you know,
I love that,
there's someone like eating alone or something, like I might go up to them and just like ask if I can eat with them, or just like, you know, just check in with people, or even like I always try to have conversations with like the person that might like bag my groceries, or that's like giving me my takeout order, like just connecting with people. And even if it's like, hey, how are you? How's your day going? Like, what was the best thing that happened today?
Oh, I love that. What's the best thing that happened today? That's a cool question to ask.
Just like stuff like that. I think it's been really cool. And that's why like the podcast has worked out well for me, because like at first it was a lot of friends, and it still is friends too, and people that I know. And of course, you were the first person that I recorded with, and
which is like, so funny. I was not qualified in any sense to be that person. So thank you for that.
Were way
seriously.
Qualified.
No, absolutely not.
Okay, quick sidebar. So it's funny because, as you know, I had this idea like years ago.
Yeah, it's been in the making for a while.
Yeah, so I had the idea like, I don't know, maybe like 2 or 3 years ago, and then we actually recorded over Skype.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I still have that somewhere. I'm gonna have to go.
I do too.
Find that.
So if you can't find it, I will send it to you.
Oh my god!
But I have that, and I remember like I was in my room, like, so my bedroom, like the Wi-Fi is kind of weird there, so like it doesn't work that well. So like I was sitting in like this random corner of my room where the Wi-Fi like usually works well, and I was just like recording on my laptop with, you know, the, you know, wired headphones and everything.
Right.
And it was great, and it sounded so like great in the moment. And then, you know, why it never launched was because like then COVID hit, so I didn't really feel like I had the capacity to put out a podcast, and I also didn't want to ask other people to sacrifice their time when other things were going on. Yeah, so like I just put it on pause, and then I tried to take the audio from that first conversation with you from Skype and use it for the podcast, but like at that time Anchor wouldn't allow it. Like it said like it wasn't an audio format that worked or something. And unlike you, like that sounds like a foreign language to me. So I was like,
you're
I don't know what that means. So I was like, I guess that means this is never gonna happen. So I just like, I kept it on my computer for like nostalgia. But I never could do anything with it. But then like once I actually finally started my podcast, Anchor started taking other formats of audio. So now I actually like can use that Skype recording for the podcast. And it's funny because like I haven't told anyone this, and I haven't even brought this up to you. So surprise. But I was going to ask you if I could use it on the 1 year anniversary.
Oh, that'd be so cool. No, it really would, because I well, the thing is, I know the gist of the conversation that we had about it, but I remember the feelings that I had while we were talking about it. I was terrified. I was so nervous. And I know that I'm going to be such a blabbering fool in it, but I think it'll be cool on both of our ends just to like show how much you've grown. Because I remember when you asked me, it was very much like you were so sweet about it, and you phrased it in a way that was like, I don't want to be an inconvenience. Like, I just think this would be a cool thing. And it was kind of your leap of faith moment. No, it was your leap of faith moment, honestly, because I remember you basically were like, I don't really know how I'm going to do this, or kind of the inner workings of what this is, but I think this is a really cool idea. Would you be open to, like, you know, let me try it out on you and like see if it's something that could. So I remember it happened, and then, you know, that time passed because of COVID. I was like, gosh, I hope he picks it up again.
Yeah.
And I feel like I remember I would every once in a while, because I didn't, honestly, it wasn't a thing. Like, I was worried about my episode being gone. I was worried about you know, continuing. So I remember every like couple of months or whatever, I would message and be like, hey, like, you're so good at this. You were such a good interviewer.
Yeah.
And the conversation that we had was so good. Like, you would just be so good at this. Like, when are you gonna pick it up again? You were like, oh, I don't know. You know, I'm in school right now. I'm still trying to figure it out. And like COVID. And I was like, yeah, I get that. And so I would just every once in a while give you like a little baby nudge. And, Zach, do it.
Yeah, no. And I mean, for anyone that doesn't know, which is probably a lot of people, honestly, like, you are the reason that the podcast is a thing. I mean,
no way. That is giving me way too much credit.
Okay,
no.
So yes, like, I'm the one that's done the work and stuff. I won't,
no
like,
way.
I won't shortchange myself on that. But I mean, like, so Good Chaos, go check it out, go stream it if you haven't listened to it yet. But on your podcast, on one of the recent episodes, you mentioned how it was tough for you when you first started doing music, because when you first started, that was a time when people weren't doing that. That was kind of like weird or taboo, or like you're like an attention seeker, or like you're just not being realistic, whatever. And when I started when I had the idea of the podcasts weren't like, they're obviously out, but they weren't really like a mainstream thing at the time.
Right. They really weren't. That's true.
You were one of the few people in my life that I felt was doing something somewhat comparable to that, like putting yourself out there in a creative avenue. So really I was cool. Like, if you believe in me and if I have your support and like you think it's a good idea, then it actually might be, because like it's one thing for, you know, like your best friend to be like, oh yeah, go for it, it's a good idea, but like someone that actually kind of knows the like industry, but not, because, you know, it's different than music, but like just knows the process of putting yourself out there and like having the internet be able to hear you and see you, and maybe random people end up on your socials because of it, and then they're scrutinizing the things you post or the people you're with or whatever. And it was just like kind of that, like, I mean, I never thought I was going to be like the #1 podcast in America or anything, but I was like, I don't know, maybe like people might start watching or listening, and that might like bring more attention on me than I've ever had. So like, that's why talking to someone like you really helped. And like, you were the one that I went to and the one that like always supported me. And like you said, you would send me those messages that are like, hey, like, is this still a thing? What's going on? And I mean,
you were so good. You really were.
Well,
and
thank you.
I couldn't believe it. Just like, it was just so cool that you were giving people a place to share their story, you know? And I knew what it meant to you also was the big thing. Like the way that you described it when you were first telling me about it, when you were just telling me the idea and the gist of it, I was like, oh my gosh, he's really passionate about this. Clearly, there's no ego behind this at all. Like, he genuinely just wants to, give people a platform and share stories. And I was super inspired by that,
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, that means a lot, and that's always what it's been about. I mean, like, it, as weird as it sounds, it's kind of always been like a selfish thing, where it's been like, I have such great conversations with these people, and like, I just want people to hear these, and like, I want to have more of these conversations, because when I have these conversations, I grow, or I leave feeling inspired, and the more that I have, the more I feel inspired, or the better I feel, or the new things I'm learning. So it's like that selfishness to like improve myself kind of drove me to
but inadvertently.
like, want to do it. Yeah. But then I was like, yeah, if I could capture these moments and share it with others, then that's what is important. And I've never been someone that's big on like, I need to have X amount of listens or streams or whatever, or like if I post on social media, I need to get 100 likes, whatever. I never really cared about those kind of things, but I realized, or I noticed, as soon as I started the podcast, I cared, but not because of me, but because of the people that I was having on.
Yeah,
I didn't want to like let them down, and
oh geez,
like I just wanted, like you, for example, like I had, like you took the time to be a part of it, and I was like, I want this to blow up because I want people to hear what you're doing, because like I've known what you're doing for years, and like I think you're incredibly talented at what you do, and I think that not enough people know about you. So like,
you're so sweet.
I want people to, and that's been like the whole theme of the whole podcast. Like I just want whoever's listening to connect with these individuals like yourself and just see that like there's so many cool things that people are doing, and like it doesn't even have to be like your career or your main focus in life. Like just we all have passions, and it's really powerful to hear about them.
It's so cool. It's such a cool premise. It's just because it's so genuine. It's not and I think that's what I want people to know. And I know they absolutely know it by listening to you, but just, knowing you on a personal level, there genuinely just is no ego behind you. Like you just are so humble about everything, and you just lend such a safe environment, and you are such a supportive friend. I have never met someone as supportive and kind, and just the fact that you have always over the years been there to be everybody's champion. Like it's incredible, and it's just who you are naturally is the funny thing. You don't have to, and maybe this is an assumption, but to me it feels like you don't have to work on it. You just are inherently kind and good,
Oh man.
I know you don't have to respond to it. Zach is really bad at taking compliments.
Yeah, I mean it means a lot, and like I think my natural inclination is to be like, I'm not doing much. I'm just
I know,
being me
but
and
you
stuff.
are. But, it is.
I think that it is true in like the least arrogant way. Like
it's not arrogant at all.
I don't try really. Like I just
it's the truth.
Act how I feel I should and like who I am, and I think that like by doing that it does come off as like being supportive and encouraging, like you're saying. So I don't think it's something that I really have to like consciously put effort in. But I mean, at the end of the day, like I think thinking about me and you, for example, it's like if I share your content, or say go check out what you're doing, or just check in with you, like to me, like I'm not going over and above or anything. I'm just trying to be a good friend and support you. So I think it's just like that's what I do, and kind of like I guess maybe that might be like a love language, like just like
I think it could be for sure,
like that kind of like support that you give to the people that you care about. But I think that like unfortunately the world we're in kind of now, where things are really quick and rapid and we get caught up in life, like sometimes we forget to like cheer on our friends and everything. So
support the people that you know and love, instead of these invisible entities and celebrities and people that we don't. It's true though, but it really, I mean, it is really, I think that's what people connect with you and love the most. And I'm curious if you feel comfortable telling me what have your guests said following, because I guess we get to hear the interviews and we get to hear the conversations that you're having as listeners, but we don't get to hear the after of the conversation that you have with guests, of like how they felt it went, how what they felt talking to you, like what are some of the things that they've said to you afterwards?
So that's a really good question, and I mean, maybe people lie to me, I don't know. But
no,
I haven't had any negative feedback or anything. And a lot of people that I've talked to, a lot of my guests have never been on a podcast before, or maybe they've done one or something. So like they'll kind of admit to me afterwards, like, I was honestly pretty nervous to do this. Like I didn't know what to expect. And then you told me you do it unscripted, and I was like, what the heck is this gonna be? So there was like a lot of that hesitation, but after every conversation, it's just been positive feedback of like, you sound like you've been doing this for years, like you're such a good host, like you really like do a good job calming the nerves, or like it's just a natural flowing conversation, and people are excited. And a lot of people have said like, oh my gosh, like can I do it again someday, or like,
Oh, I love that.
and I just like when I'm getting off the call, the recording, and after that, like I usually will send a message to the guests, just reach out and like thank them and let them know like my thoughts on it. Like when I get that message back, like I just get emotional because I'm like, this person is so kind. Like first they're taking their time to be a part of this, but then like just the kind words they're saying about me and about my process and the podcast itself is just super empowering, and it kind of makes me more motivated to do it. So yeah, a lot of the conversations, I mean, all of them, they've been very positive, and people have just, said like it's been a really cool experience and something they didn't really think they could do, and just like being grateful to have the platform to talk about their passions or their journeys and stories.
That's huge. That's huge. I mean, because imagine on their end that they're doing all these things that they're really passionate about and that they're really proud of, but some things are just not in the limelight that other industries are. So to have that, to not only be felt like welcomed by your hosts and feel loved and appreciated, and the fact that you want to know their story, but then also to know that like they're gonna be able to finally be recognized for something that they've dedicated their lives to, whether it's something career-wise or normal. I just think that's really cool. So I want to know, okay, so let's pretend for a second that I don't know you at all.
Okay.
I want you to tell me from beginning of just kind of wherever you want to start to creating the podcast, like how did we get there? What is your story? What's the life timeline that we're working with here?
Okay, yeah, that's an interesting question. So if we didn't know each other, it kind of depends on how we're getting connected in the first place. So
he's like, logistics?
Yeah, so,
how are we?
Yeah, exactly. Got to know the logistics. So
That's
I mean,
funny.
I've definitely reached out to people that I don't know and asked if they wanted to be on it. And then I've been grateful to have people that I don't know reach out to me and just say, hey, like I came across your podcast, or like I saw like you had so-and-so on and I went to school with so-and-so, like, can I be a part of it? So I've been really fortunate to have people reach out to me, which like the first time someone did that was super surreal. I was like,
I bet. It's
wow.
like a synchronicity. All the things that had to happen to get there is crazy.
For that, if you're listening, shout out Jake. He reached out to me just completely out of the blue. Like this kid, I've never met him. He's from California, goes to school in New York. But it's funny because the way that he came across me is actually a connection that you and I have. And that's
really?
Rob Lawless.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah. And the funny thing is neither of us knew that the other one had done that until we both saw it come out. We were like, what?
Exactly. Yeah. So small world. But yeah, like when he reached out to me, that was just like, that was the first moment where I was like, oh my gosh, like someone is asking me to be on my podcast. Like that's wild. But so to get back on track. So whether I'm reaching out to you blindly because I think you have a cool story or would love to talk to you, or you reach out to me, basically just get connected. Usually that happens through some form of social media or just email, and just kind of get to know each other a little bit. And just I like to share what my podcast is about and how it's unscripted, unedited, all that good stuff. And I usually link all the streaming links and stuff so people can check it out. And then once I've shared the information, and if you were like, yeah, this sounds cool, then from there basically I just say like, hey, let me know what day and time works for you, and then we go from there. And then at that point I pretty much like, I don't like cut off communication, but I don't really like, I'm not really talking to you until the day of. I'll usually just like confirm like, hey, does this still work?
I like that. So you don't have any bias going in.
Yeah, exactly. Like I just don't know much, or I'm not like swayed or, have like preconceived thoughts about the conversation. And then, you'll be like, yeah, tonight's still good. And then maybe like if I don't know you at all, maybe like an hour leading up to it, 30 minutes leading up, I'll like go on your social media, or maybe even like Google you, like if you're
see what's going on. Is anything worth mentioning?
Kind of, and just see like what you do and If there's anything that I don't prep out questions, but like if I see like, oh, you've, done this, like maybe just like file in the back of my mind, like if this comes up, maybe run with it a little bit. Yeah. And then when I always start the episodes, I always do like a little intro, and I say like, Ryli is a singer-songwriter and podcaster. Right. So like I have to kind of have a little bit of knowledge of what you do. I don't
He's like, I like a little structure here, right. Ryli. I know.
So like I like to know a little bit, but honestly, like I don't want to know too much. Yeah. So then that's it. And then when we're ready to go, we started. And then what people don't hear is every time I start an episode, there's usually like 2 to 5 minutes of just like random talking about like, do you have any questions? How's life going? Sometimes hearing someone's voice for the first time.
Yeah, I bet that's surreal. I didn't really think about that.
Yeah, it is. And like there definitely have been people on the podcast that the first time I've ever heard their voice, or they've ever like heard mine like in real time, I guess, would be on that first recording. So
dang.
That is the only time that I do edit my podcast. I just edit the first whatever
the first couple of minutes.
Like no one needs to hear that. And also like thinking back to even like our conversation, like we just talked about like random like
we were rambling,
inside joke ramble stuff that like people would just be like, what the heck are they talking about? Or 1,000%. Just stuff people don't need to hear about because it's just the stupid things that go on in our mind.
Okay, you're gonna hate me so much, but know that I love you.
Okay.
I actually meant the timeline of your actual life, but I loved hearing the process. Like I want to know if I didn't know you as a person.
Wow. Okay.
Like how we got like what's been going on in the years from X amount of time up until when you started the podcast. But I loved your answers so much, and I honestly got some really interesting stuff out of it that I didn't know personally.
Oh man, okay. Well, thank you for letting me like just rant about something that you weren't even asking.
No, but that was cool. That was stuff I wanted to know without knowing I needed to know it yet.
There we go. Okay, so the question is the timeline of my life.
Yeah, of your life.
Okay. Oh man, where do we even begin?
I know. I told you we're gonna get personal.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm 25, 26 in April, so a few months from when we're doing this now. I was born in South Korea. Actually, I don't even know if you knew that.
I don't know that. That's really cool.
Yeah, so I was born in Seoul, South Korea.
Wow.
And then I was adopted when I was a few months old, and then came to Michigan, where I've lived all my life since. So that's kind of like the origin story, if you will.
It's a big origin story, and a big move too. Jeez.
Right. So I was a few months old when I ended up in Michigan, and I've lived in 2 different houses in Michigan in my lifetime, same city, but just 2 different houses. But Michigan has always been home. I'm from like the Metro Detroit area of Michigan, so like pretty close to Detroit, pretty close to Ann Arbor. Those are like the big cities that people know of if you're not from the state. So it was like, it's very much like city, right? Like it's city living and stuff like that. So that's kind of like the way that I grew up. We have like this nice downtown area that's like a mile from where I live. So a lot of like summers would be walking or biking downtown with friends, or going after school, or on half days, or like the last day of elementary, middle school, like going down there, to celebrate with friends and get ice cream, or
I love that.
Whatever, Panera, Subway, all the good food.
Panera, you have Panera out there?
Yeah, it's the best. Well, the Panera that's downtown, they actually shut it down like a year ago, so that was like a major
I was gonna
bummer.
say ours shut down, so
there are still some, and they are great.
That's funny.
But yeah, so that was kind of like the childhood. Like I was a very like, I mean, were you born in 96?
Yeah, 96.
Okay. I for some reason always think you're 97, but
it feels like it sometimes.
So yeah, we were born in the same year, so like we had probably the same experiences of like technology wasn't really that big of a thing like when we were young. So a lot of like my childhood was like playing sports outside, or like just running around with the neighbor kids and stuff like that. And that's pretty much how I lived and everything. And I fell in love with sports, and sports were a huge part of my life for the longest time. And then they just didn't work out. When I got to high school, that kind of changed, and I was getting hurt because of playing sports. Like I wasn't taking care of my body, and I just wasn't like performing that well. So it was the kind of point in my life where like sports went from like this is all I eat, sleep, and breathe to like I'm no longer doing it. And I definitely think that that's like the point in my life where I kind of had that first like moment of just feeling lost. Like, what am I doing? Who am I? What's my identity? Because like when you put so much time and effort into something and then like
then it's gone.
You know, it's gone. It's like you have to figure it out and put those pieces together. And that's when it's funny because like growing up, I always wanted to play the guitar. But I never could. Like it was just too hard for me. I didn't understand it. I don't have a musical background.
It's hard to learn yourself for sure.
It is, yeah. So like I just couldn't do it. And then when sports ended for me in high school, I like bought like a $25 ukulele, and like they're super easy to learn how to play.
So
like,
easy.
They're so basic. So
thank you.
Yeah.
Tell my students that, please.
So like I learned how to like I literally was playing like radio like songs that are on the radio within a couple hours of getting it. Which like
that. Did you learn Riptide and Hey Soul Sister immediately?
Oh, of course. Yeah. So like you just get that like rush of dopamine because you're like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. Like I'm learning, I can play, 6 different chords. I can, strum, and then like you can kind of get to like I can like hum and play, and then I can sing and play and whatnot. So like after sports, that's when like music became the thing. And like I always joke, in an alternate world, like I'd be pursuing music full time. And
why is that a joke though? Why? It doesn't have to be a joke.
Because okay, you are the biggest advocate for me, but I just don't think I'm musically talented. Like I just don't think I'm good at it.
Okay,
like,
because people always say, I wish I could sing, I wish I could do this, and it's like everybody can, I am not. It's okay. I'll preface it by this. Yes, some people are born more naturally talented at it than others. Yes. But I am the first example that you absolutely can learn through repetition and practice,
Okay.
Because I was good, but I wasn't. If you would have told me that I would be at this level eventually, I mean, I would have believed it because obviously as a kid, you're like, yeah, duh. But skill-wise, no, you wouldn't have known. So you can do it, sir.
I appreciate it.
You can learn whatever you want.
And I think you are right. I think it's just like, I don't know. I don't know if, I think it's just always been like one of those limiting beliefs for me where it's like, I just don't think that it's something that I could ever do on a successful, like, and not, I guess I don't even need it to be a successful quote unquote level, but just like a level where people
will hear you.
Yeah. Or like people like the consensus will be like, this is good.
Yeah.
Like, any artist, like even the biggest artists in the world, like people don't like them. There's just, it's not their style. They just,
right.
Whatever.
Oh yeah, people have taste
like,
for sure.
I don't think I could get to the level where even like the majority of people would be like, that's good, or like even like this might not be my style, but I can appreciate it.
Well, I'll tell you can. Okay. There's no age that you can't pick something it. Like that up. Okay. Like you're only 25. You're only 25.
That's true.
I mean, some of the most talented musicians in the world didn't even pick up their instrument until their late 30s and things like that.
That's true. Yeah. So maybe that's
a sidebar, but still, I'm gonna keep on yelling. This is just for context, people, and this is what I've been yelling at for years because he's so supportive of me and my music and creating, but also has such a curiosity about just music in general on his own that I'm just like, try it. What's the worst that can happen? You're always going to feel like you're bad at something when you start.
No, that's true. Yeah, that was kind of what I was focused on. And then
so this is high school we're at, right?
Yep. Okay. This is high school, like middle of high school, like so sophomore, junior year of high school and stuff. And then I pretty much at that point I was like, okay, now I'm going to go to college. I don't know what I want to do in college. Like, let's
well, that's I'm so curious. Yeah. How did you get, I mean, because as a, 18-year-old kid, when you're going to college, figuring out what you're going to declare your major as, that's a big deal to brand yourself as like, I am this kind of worker pursuing this kind of career in this industry. So what was that? Like, how did you figure out what you were going to do?
Yeah, it's it's kind of wild, you know, like I went into college having an appreciation for psychology. I took AP psychology in high school and I loved it, and I found it so fascinating. And I always liked like TV shows that involve psychology.
Yeah.
Even like Criminal Minds, where it's like, you know, like police and, you know, detective FBI, but it's still like the psychology of people.
Yeah, why people do these things and
exactly.
what
So
led
like
them
that
there.
always interests me, and like that's what I was thinking of doing. So going into college, I was thinking about psych, but there was a lot of people that I knew, strangers, people on the internet, that like just from Googling, that would say like getting a psych degree is pointless, it's a waste of money, you're never going to get a job, like you have to go to school forever to, you know, be a psychologist, but that's all you can do with the degree.
Right.
So pretty much that scared me to the point where I did declare my major as psychology, but then because of that I switched it to economics.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What a jump.
I know, right? So like I took high school econ, it went well. I didn't love it, but I was decently good at it and I thought it was interesting. So I was like, if I go into econ, I can be like an economist, or I could be like a business analyst or whatever. Like I can study like the stock market, all these crazy things. And I started taking it and I just hated life so much. Like I was so miserable. Like basic econ was fine, but then you're getting into like economic like theories,
the inner workings.
and it was just like, this is just not what I want to do. And I was just so miserable, and it was just such a bad experience, and that definitely didn't help the feeling of just being lost and confused with life
after you just lost your passions and
exactly,
you know, went to a whole new place and I'm sure isolated from your family and friends. It's a lot.
Right. It is for sure. So it was just a weird time, and then that's when the decision was made, after a lot of like soul searching, honestly, to go back into psychology. So I switched again, and then that was like junior year of college when I switched back to psychology. So
always find your way back home. That's crazy.
Yeah. So then I finished undergrad with a major in psychology and dual minors in leadership and management.
I love how you say that so casually. Can we just hold on? Just rewind for a second. Can you one more time?
Yeah. So when I finished undergrad, which was 2018, I ended up majoring in psychology and minoring in leadership and management. Which
casual, multiple degrees, no biggie at all.
The interesting thing was I always was actually minoring in leadership, and then
really,
so that was always a minor. So
that was
for
a constant. Okay.
Yep. And then I started as a psych major, but then when I became an econ major, I dropped the psych major and made a psych minor. So I was still kind of like in the psychology track.
Yeah.
And then when I switched back to psychology, because it was my minor, I was already pretty far into it. So then I made that my major. I dropped the econ, but I said, like, I've spent so much time taking certain econ courses.
Yeah.
What can I do with it? And that's when I picked up the management minor, because a lot of the econ courses counted for that.
Yeah, so, you're like, excuse me, I did not put in this time for nothing.
Exactly. That's pretty much what it was. It was like I had so many puzzle pieces in front of me, and I was like, I don't know, like I have like square pieces and like round like spaces, like I don't know how I'm gonna fit them, but with a lot of like finagling and like talking to advisors, and like, I mean, there are even a couple classes that didn't count for the management minor, but like I went to like the chairs of the departments and I like not petitioned in like a aggressive way.
Oh, you advocated for yourself in that. Yeah, I'm proud of you. That's a big deal.
I think this should count, because even though it's not like this, it does give like principle XYZ, and I did, like, I got it, you know, an A in it. I worked hard in it. I think it should count. And then there were like 2 classes that weren't supposed to count, but I got them to count. So that was kind of luck too, honestly. But
that's our boy. That's amazing. That's a big deal.
You. So yeah, that is what worked out. And then and also I think like the big thing for me that was important was like I only, like, from financial reasons and also just kind of like my own anxiety, I guess, like I wanted to get it done in 4 years. There's nothing wrong to like take longer than that by any means, but for me, like I just knew like from like the financial aspect and just like me being like super motivated. Like I was like, let me just get this and do it. So that was another big motivator for me. So
crazy.
I got that done and then had a couple of years working in the real world, which was a roller coaster. And then during COVID, fall 2020 is when I came back to grad school. And now I'm in my last semester of grad school. And I mean, the last couple of years has been, I mean, you know more than most people. Like,
I know,
like
but that's the whole thing is I want other people to know is, you know, gosh, you just, I think you're so humble about how much work you actually put in. And I mean, yeah, you have not had an easy road.
Yeah, it's definitely been, you know, challenging. And I mean, you know, not that it's unique to me, right? Because everyone experiences different things, but I've definitely had my fair share of loss.
Yeah.
And I've had, you know, whether it's loss of people like physically passing on, or like loss of, you know, relationships, whether, you know, romantic or platonic friendships. I've definitely had my fair share of those. I've had obstacles professionally. I've just had a lot of things happen that have been tough and challenging. But I think like at the end of the day, like I'm just grateful. You know, I'm grateful for a lot of things, and I'm grateful to be, you know, talking to you right now, and to, you know, be alive, and to, you know, be able to, you know, go to sleep indoors and be in, you know, shelter and have food and stuff like that. So I think that just brings me back to the gratitude. And like, I think that during those tough times, I think having the support system was super important. And, you know, the thing that we kind of talked about a little bit, just throughout the day to day, is just like that self-love piece of like, when you're going through so many things, like I feel like it's so hard to have that self-love towards yourself.
Right.
Because you're like, this bad thing happened, that bad thing happened, like I'm not deserving of good things, or like I hate myself, or like it's my fault or whatever. So we just get so, like, it's just so easy for us to like berate ourselves.
Right.
So I think that's when I had to really like turn into like that, like self-love, and learn to like accept myself and love myself like the way that I am, and like for the things that I bring. And I mean, I think it's interesting because we have our conversations, and including this conversation, where like in general, I would say I am a humble person, or like I don't take compliments that well, but like internally at this stage of my life, like I would say I'm like a confident person, and I do believe in myself, and I do like value those things. I just don't want it to like outwardly come across as
vain,
arrogance.
or I get that.
Yeah.
I get that 1,000%. But okay, so finding that though, I mean, because from my end, I know, well, I mean, because we've watched it happen collectively, both together. So I can say this with actual confidence, but I know that it was a really hard journey to get you there.
Yeah.
You know, it was hard. I mean, it was hard for me too. Like, and I
Sure.
can say that because I know we would have these conversations and both kind of just echo each other's sentiments of what we were going through. What do you feel like was the turning point for you of when you were like, okay, I actually can do, you know, whatever this thing is that I want, and I am actually deserving and worthy of love and good things happening in my life?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. You know, I think that, you know, half jokingly, half seriously, like the conversations that like we would have at like 3 a.m. where we're just like, I'm having a life crisis, like what the heck is going on? And you're like, it's okay, take a deep breath, you're fine. And then like the next night it just repeats, or like you'll reach out and be like, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. And I'm like, that was me like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, we would always be like, it's okay. You just got through, but now it's just happening to me tonight. Right.
So like honestly, like those conversations definitely helped. And I think just like the conversations with people in general and friends and the support system was kind of a big turning point, in the sense that like I don't know how to put it. Like I think that for me, I always have been very to myself and always in the like ideation that friendships are for the good times.
Right.
And like when you're going through something tough, you don't involve your friends because you're like gonna bring them down or inconvenience them. And I know like you and I were pretty similar with that mindset and everything, or we have been at least.
It's hard.
It's hard, but I think that like being able to step out of that and like when I have like opened up to friends and family about like this is a tough time or this is going on in my life, like getting the support and the love and seeing like you do deserve that support, because I think like I've always made it such a mission in my life to support anyone, like friend or stranger, through
fiercely.
anything. That's like I think everyone deserves it, but then I like internally I say like, but I don't.
Yeah. Well, and you don't expect it either is the funny part. It's like, I think maybe you always knew that it would be something that you would want in return, but you were always just, you didn't expect it from people.
Yeah.
So then it turned into like just shock anytime one was like, Zach.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that like, there's some like cliche or saying around it, but it's like, you have to be at like your like rock bottom to get to the top or whatever, you know.
Oh
like,
yeah, but it
something
is
along
true.
that line. It is really true. And I think that like, you know, I mean, something that like I haven't even really talked much about in general, like with anyone or even like to myself much. Like I've journaled about it, sure, but like haven't really like verbalized is my relationship ending, my, you know, the relationship that I was in for almost 5 years happened a couple of years ago at this, or like a year and a half ago. And that was like, it was crazy because when you spend so much time with someone, especially when you're like 19 to like 24 or something, 23.
Really formative years.
Yeah, like those are the years where you're like becoming an adult and learning about life and like all this stuff. So like I absolutely have nothing negative to say about that experience or that individual. Like probably still, I like to this day I can say like she is one of the greatest people I've ever known and ever will know. And I wholeheartedly mean that. But I think that like that definitely put me at a point where I was at just like a low moment. Like, you know, that was tough. And then compounding being back in grad school where I was like, what the heck am I doing? And just having other like things come up like left and right that I was like, I just like, it was just overwhelming. And
you got hit back to back to back during that time period. It was just kind of nonstop.
It was. And I think that that's like that breaking point where I was like at my lowest. And that's when I was like, I need to start talking to people and like expressing how I'm feeling. And like, whether it's people like you who I would consider like has always been a good friend, or just like people that like I was friends with maybe a couple of years in high school and then like I hadn't talked to them in years, and like I just randomly reach out and they're like, you know, I'm here for you, you know, what's going, like you're always there for me back in like 2014, so like if I can be there for you now, like I'm happy to. And it's just like I think that was like the turning point of like when I was at, you know, a low point and like you said, just hit with so many things, having people to turn to and having people show that they cared and just sending me, you know, positive affirmations or just like, hey, I remember you did this for me that one time that really meant a lot or whatever. Like it just made me like realize that I have more worth than maybe I realize, and that I deserve the same treatment that like I would treat someone else.
1,000%. I just know, I love that because I just know from, you know, an inside perspective when you were going through that it was, I just think it was such a tough time, and not even just because of your relationship ending, but really because it was like you just had huge life-changing events back after back to back while still trying to figure out, then COVID happened too, and it was like, gosh, okay, cool, great, let's just blow up, you know, the whole rest of the world here for you. And something that I am really firm about in my beliefs is that I think, like you said, that once you hit rock bottom, it's either you start to crawl your way back up and build a whole new beautiful foundation, and then it's going to break down again, you'll do it again, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Or you become and like, okay, you're allowed to obviously mourn the loss of the things that have, you know, happened,
Yeah.
but that process of watching people get back up after things like that have happened, it is really either you are going to make something so beautiful out of such a tragic, hard, heartbreaking situation,
Yeah.
or you're going to become this kind of like, not bitter, but almost, you know, desensitized, uncaring, unfeeling person, and not do the things that you love because you don't feel like there's any point, you know?
Right.
And
Yeah.
you did it so gracefully. And I know you didn't feel like you did, but you really did. I watched you pour yourself into everything with just such love and care during that time, even when you were broken yourself. And that is just something that you can't, I don't know, it's just rare. You don't find that in people a lot these days. So I think that was really admirable, just the way that you figured everything out, even when every single thing that you had known previously had been taken away from you, you know?
Yeah, no, geez. See, you keep on saying all these nice things. I'm just like, it makes me so happy, but I'm like, like, it's like that mix of like genuine emotions. Like,
Yeah.
I could probably cry because of how nice you are and all the
Oh,
nice things, but at the same time, it's like, there is like, I guess, not in a bad way, but that like discomfort where I'm like, like,
yeah.
you're saying so many kind things and it means the world to me, but like, I'm just this kid that like is trying to be a good person.
I know.
But
it's
no,
the truth though. It's
yeah.
not I know, okay, people don't know this about me, but I'm definitely not somebody who sugarcoats things.
Right.
And I don't just say things to say things.
Yeah.
So just know, anytime I do say things like that, it is genuinely from the bottom of my heart. And also because I am such a heavy observer, I really, really watch people, like every detail of what's happening. And just, you have been the most consistent, kind, good person that I've ever come across. And like over the course of, you know, 10 years. That's a long time. And through every season, it didn't matter whether you were having a good season or a bad season, you were always still this this person inside, you know? So that's just, I hope you know that going forward in your life, that like no matter what life throws at you, that you have this really, really beautiful core that's not going away ever, you know?
And I think that's like where I'm at in like this like whole self-love journey, where like everything you've just said in the moment, like right now as we're talking, there is that like, like that's too nice, or like you're giving me too much credit. But like it in the past, I think I would just like ignore it and just be like, you know, like Riley's just saying that because she's a good friend. But I actually do genuinely believe you in this moment. And like, I think that's a part where like, that's where the self-love comes in, because like, if I didn't love myself to acknowledge that the things that you're saying are true about me, I wouldn't like accept those like kind words or the thoughts. So yeah, I mean, I definitely think that just shows like how much I feel like I've grown and matured, and like is much of like a joke it is that like kind of people make about it for people that aren't psych majors like me, I guess. In your brain, the prefrontal cortex like helps with like decision making and stuff like that, processing, and everyone says like, oh, it's not fully developed until you're 25.
25?
Like, until you're 25, like you just do stupid things, and like you don't know why you did the stupid things, but it's because your brain's not fully developed. But like when I like honestly did turn 25, like I just feel like life kind of clicked a little more for me.
There was for sure a shift.
Yeah.
Even my my older brother pulled me aside the other day and was kind of like, hey, I don't know what's been going on with you this year, but he was like, you just have a really like sense of self, and I just feel like you're being really unapologetically you, and just doing things. And I told him, I was like, I don't know. I don't know how to explain it, but I was like, I feel like my life is in shambles, to be honest, but internally I really have been able to find peace because I feel like I know who I am, and it's weird.
Exactly. I feel like and it's a lifelong journey, but I feel like especially in like your teens and early 20s, we're just trying to figure out who we are.
Oh,
But like
1000%.
when you do turn 25, it's like something clicks where like you have more of a sense of who you are.
Yeah.
And even if like externally things are tough or you're breaking down, you don't know what's going on, like I feel like internally we just have such a better like idea of who we are and who we want to be or who we're moving towards becoming.
Yeah.
And I mean, like you said, like you and I, we've been on this journey together for like 10, 11,
Ooh,
12
hot
some
minute.
years like that. So
Yeah.
it's like it's crazy to think back, like we've been in like the awkward teen years together.
Oh,
We've been in like
1000%. Really
the,
awkward.
you know, early 20s, you know, and
Those were still awkward for me. There's still,
I mean, they're still awkward for me too now.
Did it go
But,
away?
like,
I don't know, but
we've seen so much growth and development. Like I've seen it in myself, but I've
yeah.
definitely seen it in you too. And
Oh
like
yeah, likewise.
we've grown together while like
1000%,
kind of like
yeah.
observing each other's lives and then like being there in each other's like we've never left, but like we're not always like super present, but then like it's like we know when we need to like reconnect.
Right.
And
No, it definitely has been like
yeah.
a mirror for sure though.
Mhm.
And I think that's an interesting point for people to kind of take a look at their friends and the ones that they've known for a long time and just know that the same growth and kind of love that you feel for them and
Mhm.
seeing them accomplish all these things and go through their own hard seasons, because obviously everybody has their own stories, knowing that same grace and love that you give them is just like we should be proud of ourselves. Everyone should be proud of themselves right now. We
Yeah.
just got through I mean, we're not even really out of it yet, but we're, you know, global pandemic's definitely
Mhm.
something to celebrate. Just being, you know, being able to be here in this moment with you today, like after something like that is
Yeah.
for sure the definition of gratitude, you know? So
It is definitely. And, you know, I think that just the biggest thing that I've learned as I've gotten older and over the last couple of years that I think again goes back to that self-love piece is like surrounding yourself with positive things and people that are going to uplift you and not being afraid to remove the toxicness
yes.
or like kind of when you mentioned like look at your friends and like your circle and stuff, like it's okay to make your circle smaller or to just
Yeah,
have a smaller
1000%.
circle in general. And like I think that's why like you and I, we still are so connected to this day because like you don't subtract anything from my life, you add to it. And like when I look at what you're doing, it motivates, it inspires me. You're like you're just a
Aw.
positive person. So it's like I think as I've gotten older and over the last couple of years, it's like, you know, if this thing, if this person, if this activity, whatever isn't serving me in a positive way, like I just need to detach from it. And like
Right.
I think like that's also like a form of self-love and self-care by like
Yeah.
you're not you're only feeding or like fueling yourself with things that are positive and that are actually going to bring you up, because I think we've all probably had like friends or experiences where like people are maybe mean or rude and you just kind of say like, oh yeah, you know, they're just joking, or you know,
Yeah.
like it is what it is. But like we deserve better than that. And
Right.
like you said, you know, it's just the same, because like if you ask pretty much anyone, they'd probably say they would do anything for their loved ones. And it's like, or they would, you know, be there for them or support them through anything. So it's like definitely that idea of to give yourself the same grace that you would give to someone that you care about. And I think that's
Yeah.
been something I've had to learn and something that I feel like I'm in a better place with. And like you said, like we've been through a crazy couple of years. And
Yeah.
I mean, life in general is hard.
Yeah, it's hard enough as it
Yeah.
is without what's happened in the last couple of years.
Right.
But
Yeah.
no, it's true though to not be afraid of, you know, and I think that's something that you go through in your early 20s too, is your groups shift so much.
Mhm.
And the people that end up staying later on actually really probably honestly, they surprised me at least. I would have no idea that it would be the group that's still here with me.
Yeah.
But I definitely was afraid to let go of a lot of people and things and ideas that I
Mhm.
had that I thought things should be this kind of way, you know? But
Yeah.
being able to let go and know that you deserve just as much as, you know, just as much love as you put in,
Mhm.
that's huge.
It is. I mean, like, I think that's a really good way to put it. Like, the love that you put in, you are deserving of, and you should be receiving.
Yeah, back tenfold, you know?
And yeah, and I mean, I definitely think that we have those situations where, you know, maybe someone's at their capacity, so you might be giving 60% while they're giving 40%.
Yeah, you're
but
allowed to be
that's
patient
okay.
with people as they learn to love the way that you do. That's
exactly 100%. But like, if you are realizing that like this is always like 70%, 30%,
right.
like you deserve better and more than that. And I mean, like, it might sound like we're talking like in like, you know, romantic relationship, and certainly like,
Yeah.
sure, it's important for like a
It's true for
partnership,
both.
but for friendships too, and you know,
Yeah.
any sort of
Gosh,
relationship,
anything.
and even like
Work,
professional,
yeah,
like
work
professional
goals.
relationships, like
Anything
you know,
that doesn't feel good in your body is definitely not good for you, you know?
right. And as like we've talked about, like just random times, like the body is such a good indicator of like how you're being treated and stress, and like your body, it's like your body knows how you're feeling or how you're being treated before like your mind does.
Yeah. Oh, 1,000%. Yeah. Lay down some psych facts for us on that, please.
Yeah, it's, you know, it's just like we just manifest so much in our body, and like there's just so much like physical stress and strain that we go through. And I think that like the big thing that I've had to learn to do is like, it sounds so silly, but like I'll lay down to go to bed at night, and like I realize like my shoulders are probably like past my ears, like they're so high up, because I've just been like holding so much stress and tension in my body, and like I just have to like physically lower my shoulders and even like press them down with my hands sometimes, so like the body knows. And like, I mean, like when you think about it, like just the fact that like we're living and stuff, and like our organs work, and like
yeah, how
can,
crazy
like,
it all is.
Move, and yeah, it's like your body's like a
intelligent being.
Yeah, it's like a magical thing, like vehicle, so like it knows so much. So yeah, it's just like when you like, that's why I'm a big advocate for like trust your gut. And like people don't just say that to say it, like
No,
you
it's
know
real.
in your body and like in your bones and your soul, like what is right or wrong for you or for the situation. So like just listen to that and tap into it. And I think that that's been another big thing for me, just like going with my gut more and trusting myself. Because I think that like, I mean, again, like, you know, going back to the college situation, undergrad, like going back to a psych major, like when I went back to being a psych major, I was still under the impression that like no one gets a job from there, and those like outside pressures were still getting to me. But I just bet on myself and said like, maybe statistically it doesn't work out for people, but I will break that statistic because my gut is telling me I will. And,
yes. I love that.
Like, I think that's been like the biggest asset, I think, in like my adult life, of just like betting on myself, even if no one else is willing to. And like someone told me the other day, like, that like the average podcast doesn't go past like 6 episodes or something like that. And I was like,
you are
I'm on like
in, sir.
40 or something. And it's
You're
like,
nuts.
Even for that, it's like breaking the statistic, or like breaking the mold of something. Or like, when I, you know, my first job out of undergrad, I was doing retail management, and I was in this like 12-week development training thing. And it's like, you spend 12 weeks doing it, and then you move on to the next.
Weeks?
Yeah. Like
that
was
is intense.
Right. It was like, basically you need to learn how to like successfully run a store in 12 weeks. And like a lot of people, they would go past 12 weeks. They would, you know, even I know people that went to like 20, 30 weeks, and it was just like that long thing. But I just like that long process of learning. And I just kind of told myself like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to learn. I'm going to be great at it. And I just like bet on myself. And I finished that 12-week development program in 5.5 weeks. And like, I didn't think I was ready, but they're like, you're ready. And that's when it was like, okay, I'm doing that. And then I was on to the next assignment, and I was running a store. And then like after that, it was like I was I was honestly miserable doing it. Like I had a bad experience there. But
he's like, I didn't have fun doing it necessarily, but the fact that I could do it was
right. That's a whole other story. But
yeah.
it was like just emotionally it was draining, and I was just
I'm
like
sure.
I was driving 2 hours, there and back every day, and just it was super draining on me. But
2 hours?
Yeah, it was an hour each way.
Whoa.
So it was a pain, and then I just thought it was like never gonna end. But I was like, let me just keep working hard because I know that like I can make the impossible happen. I believe in myself that much, and I helped make the store a better place. And then 2 months after, I got promoted, which is just like,
duh.
It's
you
like,
make everything a better place.
Well, thank you. But it's like those things, like it didn't make sense to me, and I was like, how can they bring this 22-year-old kid in, and how can I make an impact and get noticed to the point where like 2 months in, they're like, we want to reward you for what you've done and promote you. Like that doesn't happen. Right. And I was like, I think in like those moments and like those like things that I've had professionally, and even just like coming back to grad school and like, being grateful to have, the position and, the funding that I get and everything, like it's not things that are super common, but I always just tell myself like, oh yeah, like anyone could do it. But I've like the last couple of weeks, honestly, like I've just realized like I need to step back and like celebrate these things that I'm accomplishing, because it's not necessarily normal. Like,
no, it's not at all normal. It's never been normal, Zach. I love that you're seeing that now, though.
I know it's like I've always wanted to feel like I was special or different or whatever, but I just kind of always closed myself off from that idea. And it's like, if anyone was doing this, like they'd be able to do it, or like I'm not any different than anyone else. But I think that like, again, as I've gotten older and I can just like sit in silence and reflect on my life and be like, oh my gosh, like I did this and that. Like I've written and published books, I've started a podcast, I've had professional success, I've had academic success. Like I've done so much at such a young age. And I think that that's like the thing that like, and I've even told you this, like you and I have had conversations personally about this, but like there's so many, not so many as much anymore, but there's definitely those days where I just sit and I'm like, I am wasting my life. I haven't done anything accomplished, or I haven't accomplished anything. And like,
I hate those days.
I'm just like sitting around like doing nothing. But then like you or whoever I'm talking to, like,
list it out.
Some sense into me, and you're
this,
like,
this, and this.
You've done all this, and I'm like, oh.
No, but it's true because it doesn't feel like it while you're doing it. And I think when you're ambitious and driven and work oriented and motivated, it just feels like nothing's ever enough. But when you really take account of your life, like you just did and told us your timeline, it's like, I hope now, even hearing yourself say it out loud, where it started to where it is now, what, how grueling that process was for you and all the things that you've learned in that time is really, really beautiful.
Yeah, it is. And it's been just a journey that has definitely had a lot of highs, a lot of lows, but I'm just grateful for it all. And like right now, as I'm sitting here in my room and stuff and having this conversation, like I genuinely think like emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, everything, like I feel like I'm in the best place I've been in my life.
Oh, I love that. That makes me want to cry to hear.
It's crazy because I think that there's like those times in life where you doubt your direction or you doubt who you are, your identity, whatever. And I think like the big thing is we just have to keep going. Like just keep going and keep believing. And I mean, I don't know. It's just like you feel just like at peace eventually. Like things just make sense and you're like, I'm happy. Like I'm genuinely happy for so many things. And like I have so many things that I'm just grateful for, like, and it's a good place to be in. And I think like you said, it's been such a journey. It's been 25 years of a journey. And I will say that, you've probably seen more than the average person of my journey, but still like there's still so much that like
there's still a lot that I don't know.
And it's like I think at this point it's like now I just want to share that journey and like that experience with people and like let people know, because it's I think it's important. And I mean, I hope that someday, if not already, you know, my story, my journey can inspire and can motivate people, and I think, or empower people too. And I think that like it can kind of be a blessing and a curse at the same time, depending on your state of mind. But like, I love surrounding myself with people like yourself who are doing really cool things, because it motivates me and inspires me. But I think like, yeah, exactly. Like the tough part is like when it can be a curse is when you compare yourself. And I think comparison is like the worst thing we can do. So
what is it? Comparison is the thief of joy, is the phrase?
That sounds right.
I think something like that.
It's something like that. But it's so true, because like it doesn't matter. Like your chapter 20 might be like my chapter 5.
Right.
Like, you know, we're just doing our own thing, and like that's okay. We're on different timelines, and it doesn't matter that you're doing this and they're doing that and so-and-so's done this. Like, as long as I'm doing what I love, I'm happy, and the people that I care about are happy and healthy and everything, like that's all that matters. And that's when life kind of becomes fun, honestly. And like,
no, yeah, it does.
You just feel different about it.
Because it is different, because you're just being authentically you in the moment and not worrying too far ahead or too far behind where you're at right then, you know?
Yeah. And you mentioned the psych facts, so we're going back to the psych major.
No, I really do. It's so interesting to me.
So lame fact, I guess, but like,
no, nothing.
I feel like most people in psych, like, they have a preferred psychologist. So favorite psychologist of mine is this guy named Sidney Giroux. And basically he theorizes that like every person wants to achieve their authentic self, but we rarely do in life. We rarely are ever our authentic selves, and we put on, you know, surface acting or deep acting depending on what the situation is. But like that's the goal of life. Like you kind of achieve your, you know, maximum potential when you can be your authentic self. And I think that's
when you unmask.
Yeah, exactly what you said. Like we all want to be authentically 100% ourselves, but it's so hard to figure out what that looks like or how to get there. And I'm not, you know, fully there yet. I don't know if I ever will be, and I'm sure you would say the same thing, but like,
oh, I'm so far away, but I think
doing the things to get you closer there, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what's important. And just like, I think it all starts with just like being open to being honest with yourself and with others, and like normalize the struggles that we have, or you know, embrace the uncomfortableness of life, and like not be afraid of it, or not like think it's bad, or that you're bad for experiencing these things or going through the things. Because like when we can admit that we're struggling or that we're going through things, or our life isn't perfect, that's when we can be true to ourselves. And I feel like that's like the most freeing feeling.
Oh, 1,000%, which is what you've been doing today. I mean, the fact that you're hopping on your own podcast and letting someone hijack your show without knowing any. I mean, by the way, as you guys know, his podcast is not scripted. We have not discussed anything prior to this at all. Literally not one thing. Basically, Zach messaged me earlier today and was like, hey, you know, I want to do a podcast episode tonight, but it super last minute, blah blah. And I was like, okay, let's do it. So this is all off the cusp, but
and this wasn't even my idea. This was like
your
idea.
Because I just think I think people deserve to know how special you are and what your process has been like, because it's really inspired me personally, you know? So I just thank you for being vulnerable, first of all, because that's scary on your own platform, you know?
Yeah, it for sure can be. And I mean, in addition to people knowing my process, people also know my podcast process too.
Yeah.
Because I did not understand your question, which we will ignore. But
I'm not good at phrasing questions yet, but we'll get there.
But yeah, no, I mean, I'm glad that I could, and it definitely is like a weird feeling and a different feeling, but I'm glad to. And I think that like, again, you know, if I were to do something radically different, like I am,
Mm-hmm.
there's not another person that I would trust or want to be the captain of the ship. So
yeah, no, I appreciate
you have
that.
the captain's hat.
Yes, no, it's been honestly an honor. I really am so honored and just gracious that you allowed me to do this, but also from a other perspective, really proud of you for stepping outside of yourself and allowing people to see inside in a way that they normally wouldn't be able to, and kind of teaching people how you were able to overcome your hard seasons and how to love yourself and how to really start living the life that you want to live, even if it's one tiny little baby sliver at a time, you know?
Yeah, no, I mean, thank you. It's not always easy, and it definitely, even this conversation, like, again, like, I think it makes it so easy to have this conversation because it's with someone I'm so comfortable with, and like,
I love that.
It's like I realize as I'm doing this, like, I'm speaking into a microphone, I'm watching like the recording, but I don't feel like it's any different than just like a regular conversation that we would have. So it makes it easy, and I'm glad to share it. And again, hopefully that will inspire and, you know, empower people to step into their own truth and to just live their best lives. And I think, you know, again, just a huge thank you to you for this idea, for doing it, and just for the support that you've given me tonight and just throughout
Of course.
both our lives. And, you know, it's definitely something that I don't take lightly. I mean, it means so much. Like, you've always been like the number one person yelling in the corner for me that, you know, keep going, or that I'm doing this and that so well. And it definitely means more than I can put into words. So thank you for everything.
Oh, thank you. I'm so excited. What before we go, what is there anything that you want everybody to know about what the future is like for you coming up?
What the future's like for me coming up.
Now that our prefrontal, what is it? Our
prefrontal cortex.
Yeah, now that it's developed, what is next for Zach?
Oh man, what is next for me? I think I mentioned it earlier, but I'm graduating with my master's in a few months, so I will be done with school, maybe forever, at least for a while. So I'll be doing that. So that'll be done in April. I'll be done with that, and then back to just like the working professional adult life is kind of the plan. So I'll be doing that, and then hopefully just spending a lot of time with the people that are important to me and doing the things that are important to me. So my hope and goal is to have my podcast going for as long as possible, and to make it just continue to have it grow. You know, just get more professional, just grow, reach more people. So hopefully I can continue to do that, and then just continue to do all the creative things that I like. So whether it's spending more time with like my camera, doing photography or writing, or maybe music, I don't know. Like, just anything.
Music.
Yes, music. Because Ryli told me so.
Gosh,
music.
How are you gonna have a whole musician as your friend and then not use it?
Oh, I know, yeah. So just doing the things that I love and care about, and you know, I think that a big part of just the future for me is continuing to grow the relationships with family, friends, and just myself too. I think that's the big thing, and that's like kind of the theme of this episode, is just like growing that relationship with myself and getting to know me and love myself and appreciate myself as much as I have those feelings towards the people that I care about. I need to continue to practice those feelings towards myself.
Right. Oh, that's perfect too. Valentine's Day coming up, and really the most important thing is that it's just loving yourself and being patient with yourself as you figure it out, because Lord knows none of us have it figured out at all.
Right. And that's like what inspired this whole conversation. Like with Valentine's Day coming up, like if you're in a relationship, that might be awesome. If you're not, like, you might be, you know, sad or down. And I think that like the whole premise of this was like, we forget that we need to love ourselves just as much as we love anyone else, because we deserve it. So perfect timing to just reiterate the fact that you need to love yourself, and it's not an easy journey. It's not by any means, and I'm not just saying this in like, you're not doing it so you fail at life. Like it's hard. It's really hard to get to that point. So like, don't be discouraged if you don't feel that way, but just know that like you deserve it and you deserve to love yourself. And I think from two random strangers being me and Ryli, we
internet.
can say that we love you.
Believe it, the strangers on the internet.
Yep. If you're listening to this, you know, even if you feel like there isn't love coming your way, here's two people that's sending you love and everything. And you know, the last sentiment that I have to give that's sending love is, I hope that you didn't think that we would go this whole time without it. So I have to end it by saying, go find Ryli on every streaming service and socials, and go stream her podcast, Good Chaos, every Sunday. So listen to that on Sunday, then listen to me on Monday. You'll have back-to-back positivity and good energy. RYLI.
Yep.
On like Spotify and YouTube and Apple Music and iTunes, if that's a thing. And that's all our socials. So
all my socials are I am Ryli, which is IAMRYLI. I was not going to plug any of it, Zach. This was all about you. Supposed to be. But you are the kind, gracious soul, so I appreciate you for that.
Of course.
Well, thanks for hopping on. All right, well, this is your captain signing off. Thank you for letting me take over the ZAP podcast. It has been my honor and genuine pleasure. Thank you, Zach, for being vulnerable and open with us, and we'll see you guys next Monday,
where you will have your beloved host, Zach, back. Or will you?